I guess the time has come. We need to finish this Shoebox electric power steering video. Been quite a while. We've had a lot of other projects going on and a lot of winter weather and a lot of excuses why we never got back to it. But it's time to try to see if we can get it fitted in the car. We've got our steering box with a new worm in it and a new sector gear and new bearings and seals, and we've set the preload on the worm bearing, and we've set the backlash on the sector gear, and we've got our lower tube painted. Goes on there in some fashion like that, and then we've just got our short column, and we've got our bushing. It goes in there to keep everything square, and that's what we're going to try to put in the car. We'll take the old unit out, which has a column about 4 feet long, and see if we can put this in a unit, because we've just got this short column. And then our power steering unit sits on here, and then we have our upper shaft, which sits on top of the power steering and takes the steering wheel, and that's the easy part. We still have to fabricate some sort of a support bracket to hold the whole thing under the dash, and that's going to be the tricky part. So best thing to do is get the car in here, get it up on the lift, and get the old steering out. Well, we got our replacement steering box and steering shaft in place. This is what you end up with coming up through the floor. Obviously we have a collar that goes on there yet, but no point in putting it in yet. And then what we have is our adapter here from double D to our output on our electric power unit. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to brace this column, just because when we hang that power unit on there, it's pretty heavy. I'm going to brace this column with a block of wood, and then we'll put the power unit in here and bring it up this way, and we can start figuring out how we're going to make a bracket to support it. It's a little bit tricky on this shoebox because of the floor mounted pedals. We really don't have any bracing or anything under the dash, between the dash and the firewall, like you would if you had hanging pedals. So we're really going to have to think this out and figure out how we're going to support that electric power steering unit. Well, we can ignore that block of wood that we have supporting the column, but that's the unit up under the dash, and then you have the upper shaft. Of course, we'll have a collar on it as well that comes out from under the dash. The key, kind of got this vent cable holding the thing up right now. The key here is to be able to support this unit and keep it from rotating around the column, because that's what's going to try to happen when you turn the wheel. If that's not secure, it's going to rotate around the column instead of the column rotating. So it's unfortunate that this mounting is on the bottom rather than the top, but really that's about the only way that I see that we can orient that. I mean, we can even rotate this up around a little bit to tuck that up in there a little bit more, and you're going to see this unit hanging out the bottom. Unfortunately, there's not a lot we can do about that unless you want to build some kind of custom cover around your steering column. You know, old shoebox, a little tricky for this kind of experiment, but we'll just have to lay upside down here and put some thought into how we're going to support this power steering unit so that it stays in place. And then it's just hooking up the wiring, and Bob's your uncle. Working on trying to make a mount for this electric power steering assembly. I've got an idea. I've got a pattern in there. I think what we're going to do is make a plate, comes along, picks up this bottom hole, and then bolts to the firewall there, and we'll make two of those, one for each side, and it's got a return on the inside, and what we'll do is weld two bolts in there like studs and poke them through the firewall, drill some holes in the firewall, poke them through, bolt that to the firewall, and that will support this unit and keep it from trying to rotate. And I think we've got, I looked around outside in our pile of junk, and I think we've got a piece of material that's going to work really good for that, so we'll find out. This is why we never throw anything away in the backyard. This metal box has been laying around here for as long as I can remember, but I think we finally found a use for it. We're going to cut a piece out of it, both sides, and make our two brackets. And that's because it's got a nice 90-degree corner there. Looks like it's been welded together, doesn't matter. It's pretty good thickness, looks like about 90 thou or so. And I think we can make a couple of really good brackets out of that. So there you go. Now we cut out a couple of brackets out of our red box, and all we got to do now, we drilled a couple of holes in the back side. What we got to do is drill a couple of holes in the firewall and bolt that bracket to the firewall. Then we have this through bolt running through the steering, and that ought to help support the weight of the unit, plus keep it from twisting. So I think that'll work out okay. The big fancy shops probably put some lightning holes or some fancy artwork on the bracket. I think we'll just paint ours black and leave them alone. The material's not very thick, so I don't really think we need any lightning holes. And quite honestly, being solid, it kind of hides everything under there, so a little bit of black paint goes a long way. We get that all buttoned up. We should, all things being equal, be able to hook up a few wires and make it work. We got both of our brackets onto the power steering unit, got it bolted to the firewall, got it in, got the steering wheel on. We hooked it up just temporarily to a couple of jumper batteries, and we got power steering, so we've got to just run the wires and take it for a test drive. Haven't painted the brackets yet. Really don't want to have to take them back out again. They weren't that easy to install, so we'll paint them with a brush probably. I will say that the material on those brackets is probably a little thin. If you're doing this yourself or some other version, make sure your brackets are pretty sturdy. These look like they want to twist a little bit. It's pretty long distance from the firewall out to the mount, so I may have to put a vertical support on one side, maybe off the motor up to the top, just to handle the torsional twist. Carrying the weight is not a problem, but there's a lot of torque on this steering, and it really wants to turn and try and twist those brackets. So the thing is, I'm only holding it in one direction, and I really need probably to run a rod straight up and down to keep it from trying to twist while you turn the steering wheel. But I think it's going to work out okay. It's in there. Okay, road test. We'll back up in the yard. Look at that, one hand on the wheel. Wow. Got our little adjustment knob down here. I think we'll back off a little bit. We don't need too much assist while we're moving. Steering feels, it's not too light going down the road. It's got a little weight to it. Our steering wheel's off a little bit. I'll have to fix that. Little corner coming up here. We'll see how hard it is. Look at that, boy. Just one hand right around the corner. Man, is that nice. Just right around the corner, man. Smooth as could be. No effort at all. Wow. Probably turn that knob down a little bit more. back in the chute. Wow, what a deal. Well, I think we passed our first road test. We didn't really even have the steering wheel bolted on all the way, just in case. And we got our little adjustment knob down here. Really not very little assist dialed into that, and it works really good. Really good. Glad we finally got this project spit out.